Well, hey, everybody. Nyia Harris here for Open Book with Nyia Harris. Thanks for tuning in to Power 104.7, your home for hip-hop and R&B. Before we get started here, we got a great show in store, but I want to read Power 104.7's reader. Through the Center of Broadcast Journalism, Power 104.7 is training the next generation of journalists and changing who gets to tell the stories. We deliver hands-on, intensive training with award-winning professionals, then put our students straight to work in a real newsroom right here at Power 104.7. This mission matters now more than ever, and we need your support. Help us diversify newsrooms across our state with a tax-deductible donation to the Center of Broadcast Journalism. No gift is too small, and every dollar makes an impact. Donate now at the Center for Broadcast Journalism.org. Well, again, hey, everybody. Nyia Harris here for Open Book with Nyia Harris. Super excited for my show today. Simon tried to he's like, what's your favorite? I was like, every show is like my child. Like, I don't have a favorite. So I'm so excited for the both of you to be here and get into our all too important topic. We're talking about candidacy and running for different Senate seats and things like that. But before we get into it, I want to welcome you, Simon Trautmann, Mauricio Montes de Oca. Did I say that right?
Very close. Mauricio Montes de Oca.
Mauricio Montes de Oca.
You got it.
I got it? Okay.
Perfect.
I love it. How are you, gentlemen?
We're doing great.
Yeah?
Doing excellent.
Yeah? We got a touch of spring outside, 63 degrees. It feels great.
Hey, let's go.
So you can't help but be thinking about what am I going to do this weekend? What am I going to do this summer, right? Because weather's getting nice. And we all know it's like blink and you miss it in Minnesota, right?
Exactly.
You're already thinking about what you're going to do this summer?
I am.
What do you think about?
Well, I love camping, but
Yeah?
I usually don't like to go camping when it's super hot.
Sure.
However, I've never been to the Boundary Waters, so I'm excited. I want to go to the Boundary Waters.
Okay.
And so in July, I think I'm going to be going for the first time, and I'm hoping to bring my daughter, who's 4.
Okay.
That I've been bringing out every single year since she was 1 year old.
Okay.
And this is important because I want to teach her also about the Boundary Waters, about why it's so important to protect our Boundary Waters.
Sure.
And I'm sure this is a topic that Simon...
As a very Minnesota question, we're like a very Minnesota topic right now, but are you going up Ely or the Gunflint Trail, or do you know what part of the Boundary Waters you're going in yet?
I am so ignorant about the whole thing yet. I'm just learning.
Wow.
I'm doing my research. I'm getting people to help me that have done it before.
Yeah.
And you know me. I love doing things that I've never done before.
Yes.
And I love just kind of learning as I go.
I was gonna say you also love being prepared too. So you're gonna go with an outfitter, and it's gonna be great.
But I'm not gonna go crazy because you can throw money at this, and I want to do it.
Yep.
I don't want to do it to the point where I'm not experiencing the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also, it's funny because I've taken my daughter to a cabin before, but also camping.
Yeah.
And the first time after we went to a cabin, the first question she asked is like, "Is there going to be a jacuzzi?" And I'm like, "No, this is like camping. Like you're going to be out, and we're going to be
On the ground.
on the ground,
Yes.
making fire,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the whole thing."
yeah.
And
That's awesome.
And I know we're gonna jump into the politics later.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about it,
Yeah,
now,
you headed to the Boundary Waters, Simon?
I'm we're headed up to the North Shore in about a week and a half.
Okay.
But if anybody's been following the news,
Yes.
the Boundary Waters, the Trump administration has been advocating for, and now the Senate most recently just passed a bill into law which would make copper mining with really toxic chemicals a potential reality in the Boundary Waters watershed.
And this is a Chilean company.
This is a Chilean company that's going to extract copper for China, and if we're lucky, maybe we get to buy those minerals back. So it's not a very America first project, to say the least.
And let's talk about the destruction to our natural resources. It is one of the most pristine and important resources that we have, not just in the state, but I would say in the world or not the upper Midwest for sure.
And it's in the watershed. So the water. So for folks that are imagining well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
It's water flows down, and so you can say in a Senate subcommittee hearing, oh well, it's technically not in the Boundary Waters, but that's not how water works. So if you pollute a river at the top of the river, It's not like, well, you're only 5 miles downstream, so this doesn't affect you. Of course it affects you.
For
It's
sure.
never actually, this kind of destructive mining has never been done without toxic and environmental impacts. So those one of those decisions, and I've talked to folks on the left and right side of the aisle, and everybody, when that news came out, just heads go down. We know, like, we all know intuitively, when you put toxic chemicals like into water, especially in an area hundreds of miles of protected wilderness, we're just taking our own natural resources, actually not into our own hands.
Correct.
But we're putting it in the hands of a foreign company, hoping that they will magically do what has never been done. And part of the reason why this has been protected is because, and I'm just learning about this, but this is going to be a story very familiar to a lot of people, especially Native folks here in Minnesota. That the reason this is protected is because of the treaty rights from 1854 with the Ojibwe Nation. And so what the Republicans in Washington, D.C. are choosing to do is not new, and this is a bipartisan project right over our history, is to say, we saw something of value, and we might have a treaty obligation, even if it's 170 years old, but we will violate that obligation.
Wow.
We will extract the resources, in this case, for the benefit of a Chilean company and for the benefit of China. And now we're left with a broken treaty, a bespoiled natural environment, and
Well, let's talk about who are the most impacted communities every time there is this type of climate impacts, or there's any time where there is pollution. The most marginalized communities, the most vulnerable communities, end up always getting the worst end of the stick.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there are communities that don't have alternatives to either move to either install, reverse osmosis, filtration system in their water, or there are many impacts that we often don't think about that are affecting lives, and it can turn into some really nasty situations. And the most vulnerable communities, who often don't even find out about it until they're getting sick and poisoned by these actions, are the ones most affected. So it's important for all of us to preserve our natural resources and our parks and our waters, because at the end of the day, that's all we're going to leave. Hopefully that we leave some of this behind for our
for
children.
the next generation, for sure. This is full steam ahead, I'm assuming, correct?
That's cool, and that's why local elections matter too.
Oh,
so it's
look at that segue. There you go.
and we should say, both Mauricio and I have been running for state Senate seats, and I'm really honored to be the DFL endorsed candidate for Senate District 51 in South Minneapolis, Richfield, and Bloomington, Minnesota. Also, Fort Snelling, also the Whipple Federal Building is also in our district.
Okay.
So that is something we're just always mindful of.
For sure.
And this is a big deal. Like, I want to note, we have 67 open seats in Senate. And right now, if Simon, because he will be elected, and we're going to make sure that we make sure that he gets elected.
Yes.
He will be our Latino representation, our only Latino representation in Senate.
Okay.
That's a big deal, because
Absolutely.
representation matters.
Absolutely.
Well, we hope so. We shout out Nellie Corman, who's running in Senate District 50. We want her to win, too.
That's
She's
right.
still in the fight.
And
There's
we gotta,
no endorsement.
And we got to make sure that
we... brother. Thank
we
you.
got to make sure we work. That's right.
Absolutely.
I just saw her the other day. How could I forget? So thank you for reminding me, because we got to work for every single one, and we have Maria Isa and commissioner for Ramsey County. Like, we got to support our Latino representation, because
Absolutely.
it matters. Representation matters.
100%. I already know this is going to be a fantastic conversation. You going to stick with me?
We're with you.
We're
All
with
right.
you.
We're going to take a quick music break. We'll be back in a bit. You're listening to Power 104.7, your home for hip hop and R&B. All right, we're back. We got to get into it a couple minutes early here, because we got so much to cover. I've got so many questions for you. It's all up here, by the way.
We're excited.
I love it.
So as you mentioned before we went to the break, Simon, we were talking about how you're both running for Senate, right? But before I get into that, I have to address the elephant in the room. How come I didn't get the memo about the blue blazer?
About the
Just
blue
saying.
blazer.
I'm just saying, I feel left out.
It's so funny.
This is this is the spring is here.
Yeah.
Latino candidate
Uniform, right?
I guess that's exactly right.
I'm just teasing
No
you.
lie. I almost put on a navy blue shirt too. So then that would have been it would have been really awkward.
And it's funny because I had a shirt that had print on it, and I was like, no, I know it doesn't look. Whenever you're on video, it's not the best visually for people that have disability also, and they're
Sure.
like, it's just overwhelming. And I changed it to this, and I should have called you.
Oh, man.
So we coordinated
Opportunity
perfectly, or
missed.
not coordinated like that.
Well, I'll see both of you again on May 28th, so we'll see if you coordinate again then. So
I love it.
Okay, so much to get into, like I said. Okay, so let's start here. And I also want to say this too, that it's really important to, I'm not a fan of this phrase, but like when people say dumb it down, like I don't like that phrase, but like, but make
open
it
it up.
simple. Yeah, like make it so the average person can understand, right? At a 5th grade or 8th grade level, right? Like, and I'm going to just ask you some questions. First and foremost, which is, why did you both decide to run? What was the fire in your belly that made you decide to run?
And by the way, I want to make it clear, like I myself, I'm not running for Senate anymore.
Okay.
My campaign has been suspended. I'm not continuing because I was not endorsed.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the conversation that I'd love us to have a little bit in regards to that.
Yeah.
And what does that mean and how do you get involved? I decided to run. So to me, honestly, during the Metro surge and ICE in our communities, it was of tremendous impact emotionally, mentally, I would say even physically. And I mean, it got to the point where I was carrying my passport, my daughter's passport around, my wife's passport. Like we just going out was is this something that I should go out? You know, my mom would call me and say, where are you going to go? Do you really need to go? Can you avoid it? Like, what if you get picked up? Yeah. And the reality is, because even though I have the privilege of having citizenship, it doesn't mean that I don't look Latino enough to be target of this particular administration and the way they were going about things.
Yeah.
So for a couple of weeks, I was basically in fear. And I decided that I was not going to allow myself to live in fear, that I was going to go out, that I was going to fight back. And if there was something I could do, I was going to do it. And I realized that there was an opening, that the current senator for my district was not running for re-election, so it was an open seat. And I said, you know what? And with the help of a good friend of mine who is the former senator, Patricia Torre-Rey, who said, you should run. I definitely think that you have an opportunity, and I did. And it was a 6-week campaign. It was a lot of work. Lots of sleepless nights, lots of very tough conversations with family and community and so on. But I decided to run because I believe that representation matters. I know I already said that earlier, but I believe in it truly.
Yeah.
And I want more people that look like me to be able to represent us, to be on spaces that allow for change to happen. And I'm also a person that likes to bring solutions to the table and not just the problem, because it's easy to talk about the problems, but I wanted to be part of the solution. And for me, being part of the solution was to stand up and fight for my communities and have that representation that understood what our lives and our lived experiences look like in our communities.
I love that. Simon, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean that one. I appreciate you brothers standing up and putting your whole heart into that campaign. And for me, I have the privilege of being an attorney in our community and to lead a team of incredible lawyers, and we work with everybody. But I'm a second generation Latino business owner, and we work with everybody, but primarily we represent Black, Latino, first generation immigrant business owners, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders. And so as a lawyer that has a privilege of fighting on behalf of a lot of communities of color in 2025, we saw radical changes in how the government was approaching obviously a lot of communities of color, specifically immigrants. And so that meant clients of ours, employees of ours that had legal status, on advice of their lawyers, said, well, you might not want to go out too much, because even when ICE only had less than 100, maybe 60 or 80 agents in our state, they were still starting to break car windows, starting to break into homes without warrants,
Yes.
all these aggressive tactics, starting to remove people from court hearings without giving them due process. We saw all these things begin to happen, and then we saw this, this big Republican bill that, amongst the many things that it did, including raising healthcare costs for folks, including cuts to Medicare, it also appropriated close to $170 billion for Homeland Security and for ICE.
The largest in the history.
It's
$170 billion.
to give you a sense of scale. At the time, that was more money than we had sent to Ukraine over a period of years.
Oh, my word.
So to fund that war, we thought we're going to fund that here. And when you look at the GOP platform, it said I forget what number one is. Number two is the greatest mass deportation event in American history. So so none of this is a secret. There's no hiding the ball. And now, not only do you see an aggressive policy position, which you can have an aggressive policy position and we can organize against this, but you have tens of billions, more than $100 billion put towards this. And then you add to that an aggressive disregard for the rule of law, which is just a shockingly toxic soup. And so for folks that, and maybe it's good to talk about, well, what is politics? And I think politics is just people getting together and using power in community. And that those can be good politics, violent politics, peaceful politics, but there's people coming together and using power, and we're all political, whether we know it or not.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Agreed.
And I know what my politics are, which are the politics for building power amongst people that historically have not had power. And we want to, and these are popular. This is not, I don't think I'm saying anything very controversial. We want justice. We want fairness. We want equality under the law.
Yeah.
And how much of my time and my energy and our resources are we going to put towards that?
Right.
And
we want a respect for due process.
We want respect for due process. And for me in 2025, I just decided I'm going to be not too busy for anything except fighting this every way I can. I didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
And so when our senator retired in Senate District 51, it was very clear, like, oh, this is exactly what.
This is your path.
This is the path that we're going to move forward with.
And for those of you who don't know Simon, like, Simon's an amazing human being. He's a family man. Like, he's a good friend of mine, but he's also a friend of community, and he cares. Like, these are the type of people that we want in our politics.
Absolutely.
He cares about human beings. He is an amazing human being at heart, and he's gonna work hard, because that's what he always does for anything he does. So for anybody who can and is able to vote, please do not forget the importance. Your vote matters, and we need to go out there and support him, as well as the other Latino candidates and anybody who you believe is going to make a change for your community as well.
Well,
Yes.
well, that's very kind of you. But and I just want to say this really clearly too, that when you help people that are on the margins, you almost always help yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Like, that's so when Latino rights are being violated, there's actually no such thing as a Latino right. There are human rights. There's
exactly.
the rule of law.
Yes,
When
yeah.
when black folks are being discriminated against, that's not a black problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's
correct.
an American problem. That's a human being problem. And so when we're protecting the rule of law for Latino Minnesotans, there's not a different set of laws for Latino Minnesotans. These are all of our laws.
Thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people forget that when you think about one community losing its rights, and it's about that community and that's their problem. But when one person loses their rights, everybody loses their rights.
Yeah.
So, to me, this is also very personal. My grandfather was a Russian Polak Jew who was able to escape Nazi Germany. He was, so my whole family through my grandfather died in Nazi Germany, in gas chambers. And like, this is real. The worst thing, like, I know deep in my blood what can happen when people don't stand up for each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a famous poem, that goes, first they came for the communists, but I didn't do anything because I was in a communist. And
Yeah.
they came for the socialist, and I didn't do anything. I don't have to go through the whole thing, but
Yeah.
my point is, when they come for you, now it's too late, because there's nobody to stand up for you. So if we need to stand up for each other before it's too late, and when somebody's rights are being violated, we need to stand up for them, because sooner or later they're coming for yours as well.
And we have the privilege of representing a lot of Somali Minnesotans too, a lot of Somali business owners and community members. And what a lot of people don't know is that more than 90%, probably close to 97 or 98% of Somali Minnesotans have status, and more than 90% are citizens, and more than half were born here in Minnesota. So when the federal government chooses to send thousands upon thousands of masked gunmen and send them to places like the Carmel Mall, and start saying, show me your papers, literally, not hyperbolically, literally, you'd be more likely to find people without status at the Mall of America than at the Carmel Mall. So when you send masked gunmen to a community like that, demanding things that I don't believe our Constitution requires of people.
And let's call it for what it is. It's intimidation tactics.
It's intimidation. And you say, well, we can't know the intent. Well, we have a pretty good idea what the intent was, because the president said horrifically in the White House, those are, I don't even like repeating the phrase. No. Those are garbage people, he said. And he said, it's not politically correct, but I want them out. And so I think it's important to understand the context in which this is happening. And it's not just about the Latino community. It's not just about the Somali community. It's about the president being able to say from the White House, those are the kinds of people I don't want. He'll even use the word, those are garbage. And then say, I want them gone. And then what's the next thing that he does several weeks later? I'm just going to send thousands of masked gunmen for people that are 97, 98% here legally.
And use violence.
And use violence and break down the rule of law and say, this is so important, we're going to disregard those basic civil rights, those basic human rights, those rights to say, you need a warrant before you can come into my home. And that's the rule of law that doesn't protect one kind of American. It protects all of us. And so that's where these conversations are so sobering, but it's really important to have these conversations within lots of communities, because this is
and the economic impact as well. You know, it's sad, but if there are human beings who don't believe that other human beings deserve to be here, I think that's wrong. You need to do some work internally. But if that doesn't matter to you, I'm hoping that the financial impact as well is going to make you think about why we should protect Latino communities, African American communities, Somali communities, like all communities, because we're all part of Minnesota. We're what builds Minnesota. Latinos are the second largest economic power in many places around the country, and small business owners. And I mean, Latinos generated 39% of the GDP of the United States between 2020 and 2021. That's almost 40% of the GDP, gross domestic period. And product. Thank you. You know, clearly I don't even know my acronym.
No, you got it.
But my point is, we're only 17 to 19% of the population,
that's
almost generating half of the gross domestic product. I won't forget that. But that's it. That's big. That's a huge economic impact to all of us.
I think those numbers, that's the type of things that like the average person doesn't know, right? And that's why these conversations are important. I do have another question for you.
Lay it on us.
Well, I've got a lot of questions, but my question for you is, when you decided to run, it wasn't just you deciding. They say when you decide, it's your family that's really deciding, right? Because they're in it with you. I'm curious to know what, you're both married, beautiful wives. I'm curious, what did they say? What did they think? Don't answer that.
Oh, all right, cliffhanger.
Don't answer that. Why aren't they answering that? Because if you listen to the show, then you do know that this is where we always leave a cliffhanger. So we're going to answer that question on the other side in podcast. Check back in about a week or so, and we'll have the YouTube edited link up and ready for you, and you can watch this show in its entirety. I do want to let you know, live listeners, next week's guest is Dominique Wright. He is a entrepreneur, and he does payment processing. I'm blanking on the name of his business, but we'll get it. So thank you so much, live listeners, for tuning in. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and flip over to podcast mode. I thank my guests for being here live, and
thank you for having us here.
Yes,
we're entering podcast mode.
And we're entering podcast. So if you have choice language you like to use, wait till we get to podcast.
All right. I've been waiting.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. All right, we're back in podcast mode. Okay, your cliffhanger question was what?
Oh, I forgot already.
You
I'm
forgot?
just kidding.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding.
It's like Mauricio.
No.
I'm telling Carla.
About the family impact.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you want to go or you want me to go?
So I can go.
Go for it.
No, I have served on the city council in the city of Richfield for a number of years, and so my wife Jennifer, who in a couple of weeks will be married 24 years.
Yay!
Thank you. But she's very aware of what the tolls of being a political family are.
Sure.
And those are, politics happens. A lot of those meetings happen in the evenings, on weekends, community events happen. You go to people when they're available, and a lot of times that's when you would be spending time with your family.
Yeah.
So that's bringing kids to events maybe they don't want to go to because you're like, we're going to be this is what the family is doing.
Yeah.
Or there are times where you're not there and you feel that absence. And then of course, this is just a time of political violence.
I was just going to say.
This is you are less likely to be shot as a United States Marine than a Minnesota senator right now in this moment. Like that's because of the state of violence and radicalization and divisiveness.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a cost that she counted. But Mauricio mentioned this too, which, when as a family, you have to say, well, who has their passport and who needs it? In our family, the conversation was, who looks white enough to not need a passport? And I am.
You actually had that conversation.
My wife is not. Yeah. And so,
wow.
So there's like so you have like the rule of law affects who, how. It's not like I did anything special to get more rights or liberty. Yeah. No, it's just the rule of law is now specifically now Justice Kavanaugh. They're called Kavanaugh stops because of their I'll use the word shadow docket decision. And what a shadow docket is a quick decision where the court does not explain its reasoning. But it has been interpreted, and I think certainly a lot of federal law enforcement are interpreting the Kavanaugh decision to make it possible to look at somebody and say, you don't look like you belong in our country.
Racial profile.
And so now I have the right to get your papers.
We're coming back to that.
Okay.
We're coming back to that.
So all that to say is that made it very clear.
Yeah.
This is the time we're all in, and I'm really grateful for Jennifer and our family's support.
Yes. Two sons. And they are what age?
They're 11 and 16.
11 and 16.
Yes. And shout out to Justice Trautmann, who starred as Bert in the Mary Poppins production at Richfield High School. Shout out Justice.
Proud Papa here.
Papa, that's right.
Excellent. Yes.
Well, what was Carla thinking?
Actually, so for us, it was not an easy decision because of the reality of the current moment where we were living under, but it was also an opportunity to give back. And I think so. My wife and I run a consulting business. We already partner with organizations. We do a lot of community outreach. We try to create an impact in our communities in many different aspects of our business, and we do. We don't just try. We do. And this was another one of those opportunities. And so. We had a conversation. To be honest with you, we didn't have a lot of time to make the decision. We're going to talk about this, but caucus was happening very fast. And by the time that we came out of the fear mode and realization that I could actually run for Senate, it had to be, are you ready to go? Let's go. So I think that helped, the fact that we didn't have a lot of time to overthink it. But my family was ready. There were definite concerns. My mom was one of them too, and many others. But I'm also super blessed. Like I have my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my mom, my stepdad. Everybody was on board. And when we were campaigning, when we were doing events, everybody was there. And I think people noticed that it wasn't just me. Well, of course, I was going to be the candidate, but I came with a family, with a community, which is I walk I walk the talk, which is I build community, and I'm bringing everybody with, because politics affects everybody.
Absolutely.
Like Simon said earlier, I hear people that say, I don't like politics, but politics involves everything you do in life.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, I'm a small business owner, you're a small business owner, same as Simon, and people say, I don't like sales. I don't care what you say. We all do sales.
Absolutely.
We all have to do sales for everything we do. So politics is like that. It's involved. Politics are involved in everything we do. And if we're not paying attention, also if we're not paying attention to the numbers, I always say, if you're on a board, if you're in anything, make sure you understand the finances and where the money's coming from and where it's going, and politics is like that too as well. So
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you to you, Mauricio, because a lot of people don't recognize when you are a small business owner, the easy thing is to not take a political stand. The easy thing is to say, well, oh no, that might cost me dollars to say anything. I'll just give you a real simple example.
Yeah.
So we've always served immigrant populations, predominantly, but not exclusively in our firm. But we haven't until the last year had an immigration practice. And so we wrote recently just a really simple email, just updating folks on our email list. We have an immigration practice. There's no pictures. This is in terms of the emails we've wrote, a pretty boring email. And this is our newsletter. So these are pre-selected people. Within an hour, we had 3 of the most hateful emails you could imagine, and simply saying, we practice in this area of law. Nothing political, just we practice in this area. Immediately elicited, the kind of hateful, kind of red-pilled sort of, why won't you represent citizens? Just that kind of like, not kind of we call it a non sequitur. Doesn't necessarily relate to what you're saying, but within an hour of sending this email out, you get that kind of energy. So I say that to just lift up Mauricio, that when you and your family made that decision to step up, like as you counter the cost. I know we talked about it, and I just want to say thank you. And I trust that this is why when people stand on their values, you really need to double down and support people that stand on their values like you have and you did and you continue to do. Shout out Mauricio.
Yes.
Thank you, brother. No, thank you for saying that, because I think that was one of the other things. It's understanding, as you create a political platform, that it's making sure that it's fully aligned with your values. And he's right. Often people have to make the decision, or they feel like they're making a decision that will affect their business. But at the end of the day, I think if you lead with your values, anything you do, it's always gonna come back full circle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things I'm thinking right now, but I do want to go back to that one topic we were talking about when you had said, essentially you're saying like white passing, right? Like, do any of us look white enough to, that floors me that you were having that conversation with your children, 11 and 16. Your adorable daughter's 4. So do they grasp that at all? Like, I'm obviously different ages, different stages or whatever, but do they grasp that at all? Like what that means?
I think at different levels, and we have different conversations with different children.
For sure.
And, how much of this do you really want them to understand? How much do they need to understand? How much can you save them from? I think we try to shelter our kids a lot, but this is something you just can't shelter your kids from. Right. And so also, with a dad that does politics, it's kind of like being a preacher's kid, I think, in some ways. You're like, oh, that's the thing that dad does.
Yeah.
And we see dad doing that all the time.
Sure.
But this was a moment of real awakening for our children to realize, oh, this is affecting kids in my school. This is affecting our life, our family, our community. This is it. So there was, in that way, politics came to them in a way that just there was no way to not talk about it. So, and there was no way to say, we didn't want our kids to just live in total fear, but there is a healthy fear and a healthy recognition of the privileges that they have, and that their neighbors or their friends don't have. And so everything's a learning moment, but this was a painful one.
Oh my gosh, Simon.
I mean, mine, I believe she's still too young to grasp all of it. We do protect her a lot from a lot of this. We're very privileged to be able to encapsulate her basically from all of this reality. I will say that her tantrums were horrible during the time that this was really bad. And we had a conversation like, you have this.
I had a couple of those too.
Postmortem conversations, right?
Oh, you yourself?
Yeah, personally.
I thought you meant your kids. I was like, oh, okay.
No. I've been angry a couple of times.
Yeah. But I think so. We were talking about how we believe that it directly affected the way that we. I mean, we were talking about it at home. We were trying to do a lot of code switching at home to that she wouldn't necessarily understand. But I think at the end of the day, she was picking up on the energy, and I think we as parents start to realize, at least in for me, she's like I say with all the respect for all. It's like she's like my little Buddha. Like she is teaching me so much because I am growing as a father, but I'm growing as a human being by being more patient, by being more understanding of how she receives my emotions.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed that I thought I was being protecting her by not showing the true emotions of what the impact of the ice in my communities and death and all of the things that were going around us and people being snatched. But I think she could feel the energy. And so her response, without being emotionally mature enough to do it any other way, was to do tantrum. So I think it literally affected her and our family, even though we thought we were fully protecting her. But there will become a time that we can't hide those conversations.
Right.
And so this is real, like Simon said, do I talk about white privilege and or white passing or whatever it is? Like, I think this is real for a lot of our communities, and we're in a pretty privileged spot. Other community members are even much worse than we are. And so I think we need to be cognizant of the impact that all of this has had, but will have in the future for the psychological impact, the post-traumatic stress disorder for children, for, imagine being a child and seeing your parents who are supposed to be your protectors afraid and not wanting to get out. Like, what does that do to a child?
Oh, for sure.
Mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do want us to get back to the caucus and getting involved in politics.
Well, I was just, look at all my beautiful segues I'm getting. Okay, I was going to say, well, people know that change happens at the grassroots local level, right? And so as Simon said earlier, like voting is really important. Your vote matters, but it's even more important when it's closer to you. Your city council, your school board, this like it isn't usually within like a couple hundred votes, something like that, where it's like it can come down to literally
to a vote.
Yeah, single vote, right? So I want to know, first and foremost, I'll give you kind of a two-parter here. First and foremost, why should people run? Why should people care? Why should people run? And then second, actually, you know what? That's kind of a loaded question. Let's just stay there for a second. So why should people run? And then we'll come back to why should they vote?
Well, I think I go back to my first answer, which is we're always political, and so people should understand what's happening to them and why. And if you experience your life and it's going pretty well, that's great. That's mission accomplished. As politicians, a lot of times, especially as city council members, I don't want to be known. We're kind of like a referee in a basketball game, where if you know the name of the referee, it's not because you think he's a great referee, and you want
because it's bad.
You're like,
we say the same in football. I mean soccer.
Yeah.
Yes. Nobody's like, oh, who's Scott Foster? Oh, he's a great referee. I love it. If you know that person's name,
it's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I think why people should be involved in politics, because democracy is the foundation of our country, even if it's imperfect, and it's imperfect.
Yeah.
The idea that your voice is matters as much as my voice, and we all decide who holds that power. We have that lever to come together, and at the end of the day, it's just it's a popularity contest. You say, well, there are a lot of other ways to share power that are not popularity contests, and there are problems with that. Sure, that's true. But the genius and the power behind that is that if you're having a bad experience and I'm having a bad experience, and there are enough of us together, we have the freedom of speech to come together and say, experiencing the thing that I'm experiencing?
Yeah.
Are you seeing this too?
Yes.
Is this happening in your neighborhood, in my neighborhood too? What would you like to? Do you want it? Me too. And that action can manifest in you running for office, or it could manifest in you talking to your council member, emailing them, starting a social media group, starting a walking group. There are any number of things you can do, but to know the power starts with you, and the power starts with your neighbors, because that's how we built the system. That's a powerful awakening. Again, not saying it's perfect, but it's powerful. And if we don't use that power, all that power will go to the people who think about it, use it, and cultivate it.
Yes. Simon, I'm getting fired up
Let's
here.
go.
Like, I want to.
Let's go. And also, I think it's important to remember that decisions get made at these tables, and you either, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
That's it.
And so we need to make sure that we're involved. And while I can't tell you that I wake up thinking like, oh, I totally want to be a senator or a representative and not spend time with my family and then be there till 12 or 1 a.m. And also being in a minority. Like, there are so many things that are not appealing to it. However, their appealing part is that I can be part of a voice of change, that I can be a vote that changes from protecting my boundary waters to protecting my community from PFAS, from, I don't know, making sure that people have a right to vote, from trying to make sure that gerrymandering and redistricting doesn't fully affect the most vulnerable communities. Like, there's so much we can do.
For those who don't know, gerrymandering, just can you speak on that really quick? What is that?
How much time do we
It's a high-level overview.
go for it?
So gerrymandering. So we have a lot of people in Minnesota might not know what gerrymandering is, because we have a great tradition of not having partisan, which means just for red state or blue state voting districts. So we have a more Democratic than Republican Congress members, but the districts generally reflect who lives in those districts. And so a district like the 5th Congressional District where I live, Ilhan Omar, our Congress member, routinely wins her election by a significant percentage.
Okay.
Now, if you're partisan, you look at that map and you say, well, she doesn't need that many percentage points to win. So when we redraw that map, we're going to take 5, 10, even 15% from her, and we're going to go put that in a district that we've lost for a lot of years. And now we're just going to give them 5, 10, 15%. So now and this has been really important, because the Voting Rights Act, so this is one of the many tools that states have used to disenfranchise communities of color, especially Black Americans.
So
the Voting Rights Act was all but repealed this last week.
I was just
so it was not repealed, but they said, well, it's completely okay for people to do this kind of partisan gerrymandering, because Black people can vote for anybody they want as long as it's the party that chooses to gerrymander it that way. Or Latino people can vote for anybody they want. They can vote for any Republican they want in this. And I say Republican because it's almost universally folks on the right who are zealous to redistrict what they would say, well, they're just Democratic seats, but disproportionately they're communities of color. We've had that protection of the rule of law, and now it's been reimagined away. And look at many places in the South. As many as a third of the Congressional Black Caucus may lose their seats in the next 2 years. Up to 3 years. If that's the fight.
Paying attention.
So we need to be paying attention. If there's an alarm to ring, let's ring that alarm.
Yeah.
And you can look at what gerrymandering has done, even in the state of Wisconsin, just to our right, where you see election after election where Democrats are winning a majority of the statewide elections, but their legislature was still not reflecting that, because everything had been gerrymandered to say, even though a majority of folks in Wisconsin want a different party in power, because of the gerrymander, you won't get that in who represents you in the legislature.
Yeah, I would probably encourage people to maybe just even Google that for their district, and you'll see some real creative shapes there.
Ask any large language model, any like ChatGPT, any of those things. Just give me a clear-sighted explanation of how gerrymandering works and clear examples near me, and it'll give you a very good explanation. And I think this is really important.
And I think the original, if I'm going to get my facts right, but this is a phenomenon a couple hundred years old, and there was a political cartoon of a voting district that they thought kind of looked like a salamander. And because it was,
I believe you're right.
And so they called it a gerrymander relating to the candidate.
That's how it got its name.
That's how it got its name.
Okay.
But the name is not important. What is important is the effect that it has on your everyday life.
That's right.
And on the fact that then you can have communities of color, BIPOC communities who can have representation, but all of a sudden have no power because they just basically redrew the whole map in order to take away power.
Sure.
And so as we continue to build power, we need to make sure that we pay attention to this because it's economic power, it's political power, it's everything. It affects the way we live. It affects the way the water we drink, anything, because it's all connected to politics. And you were going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that this is not the first time that this has happened.
Oh, no.
So during the Civil War, just after the Civil War, we passed the first Voting Rights Act, which enfranchised black folks, enfranchised communities of color, and it was repealed. And then in the 60s, we actually passed the second Voting Rights Act. And technically it's still in place, but because of this partisan analysis, it's very unclear, and it seems pretty clear that it's going to lose virtually all of its power. So we're maybe I don't know what's worse, to have something on the books that says, well, you cannot discriminate against communities of color, but to have a Supreme Court decision that says all your discrimination is now blessed by the Supreme Court.
Wow.
And that's the moment that we're living through. But this is not a new moment. We had to fight it before. We had to fight it again. And this is why you're like, does my vote matter? It really, really does.
For sure.
And I had a recent opportunity to go to march with Keith Ellison and the son of Reverend Jesse Jackson in Selma, Alabama, to commemorate the commemoration of voting rights. And it was so impactful to be in those spaces, and it was so impactful to see how Montgomery and Selma, Alabama looked like, and the disenfranchisement and the poverty, and knowing that it's majority African American. And you look at it and you're like, there's no way that this is the only thing that they have available financially. Like, these homes are dilapidated, they're coming down. But also walking that bridge was so powerful because there is a lot of history on how we got to an opportunity to be able to vote for people like us.
Yeah.
And we need to not take that for granted. And right now, if there is anything positive out of this, is this a clear awakening, a reminder that if we're not involved, we will lose everything that we've gained. And it's interesting because earlier we were talking about the boundary waters, that it takes years sometimes to pass laws and protections, and it takes 5 minutes to create some horrendous impact for the climate. But it also, for the same thing, right now, one decision can mean generations. Like, it could mean that our children or our future looks much more grim if we're not getting involved. So we need to, like Simon said, I think it was great to remember that we've fought this fight before, and we need to make sure that we're aware enough that we're not too busy doing TikTok or Instagram and all those things that are social media. Can be good, and it can be great. It can bring great things, but it can also keep you very busy from getting involved and finding and understanding the knowledge that will directly affect your life and your livelihood.
Yeah. I mean, so with that said, look at the time too. I told you I was going to go fast. So you said earlier, you're sounding the alarm, you're ringing the bell, right? So what do we do right now? What does the average person do right now?
Amazing question. And I'll say the average person, awareness. Things start with awareness. Are you aware that something is unjust or not working in your life? You're aware that you can't afford your health insurance. You're aware that 60% of your rent is your rent is 60% of your wages right now. Just recognizing that that's not okay. And in using your voice to say that's not okay, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Now, what's really critical, and I think this is what's so important, there are a lot of learnings that we can take from 2026. One of the most important learnings I think that we can take is that when we were responding to Operation Metro Surge, it was not primarily a social media response.
Correct.
It was not people, posting a profile picture of the Rebel Alliance loon. Happy May 4th. May the 4th be with all of you.
Yes, may the 4th be with you.
But that's not a transformative action. That's not. It's barely a political action. And so I think what I was so impressed by our state, I think the testimony that our state gave to the country, is that we took our political anger and manifested into political action.
Oh, for sure.
And that action is going to look differently. So it looked like people that had never done anything to say, well, I'm at a protest now. And it goes from a protest to, well, maybe I'm going to vote. And I'll tell you a great story about Larry. Larry is a voter in our district. He was somebody who was maybe not top 5, but certainly top 10 people who would say really aggressive, negative things, would come to the city council and, take his 3 minutes to tell us how we're doing things wrong. It was kind of like a
curmudgeon.
I'd say like a Fox News reading, very aggressive.
Okay.
Person, but whenever he had an idea where I said, well, that makes sense. I'll take good points from any direction. He showed up at a No Kings protest, and I just said, "Is that Larry? Is that Larry out here?"
Yeah. Larry from Public Comment.
Yeah, Larry from Public Comment, and it was. I asked him what. I was really surprised. He's like, "Yeah, I don't like Kings."
Okay.
I don't like Kings.
Okay.
And then when I went to the council and I spoke again, and I asked him, like, hey, are you gonna speak? Because usually he's there to speak. He said, no, I'm just here to listen and support.
Yeah.
And so he moved from being an antagonist to, okay, I'm here to support. And then he took a video recording of my speaking, which usually when your opponents are doing that, you're like, oh, that's going to be clipped and that's going to be put where.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to know I'm supporting you. And he took that video, and then this is the important thing. It's not that he shared the video with his social media. He said, well, you should support Simon for Senate, and I'm going to show up in caucus. So he went from opposition to, I'm just going to show up here. I'm going to find my people. I don't agree on everything. And he showed up at caucus, and he said, can I caucus as an independent? They said, yeah, you can. And so that's the kind of movement that translates into action, that translates into policy change.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we talk about caucus and how that happens.
Yes.
And so I think this is very important because oftentimes...
Yeah, that's right. I said caucus. What's caucus mean, Mauricio?
Look at
let's talk. That was beautiful. But let's talk about when it happens next.
Yeah.
It happened this year in March 3rd.
But what's caucus, Mauricio?
Caucus is where we, the community, get together
Yes.
to have and exercise political power. Now, oftentimes I hear, and I've done this before, is why is this candidate on the ballot again? I don't want to vote for this person again. Why are they in the ballot?
This is my only option.
This is my only option.
Yeah.
Why? Well, the reality is that somebody chose, especially if there were people that were contending that seat. There were people who chose and decided that that was the best option for that particular party. So each party has their own caucus. So it's very important that all of us get involved in caucus night, because that's the night where you can also raise your hand and become a delegate. A delegate means that you are representing your community and that you will be one of the individuals, because if there are many people that want to become a delegate, you can actually have an opportunity to say, I want to be a delegate because I want to make sure that my community is well represented in this area regarding protection of boundary waters, let's say, because we keep talking about that. But there are many things. It could be whatever your interests are. And you are a representative of your community. And then all of the candidates that are running in your district are going to reach out to you and say, hey, this is my platform. And then you have an opportunity. You have some real power as a delegate to make a decision of who is that candidate that shows up in the ballot in the future. So the more that people get involved in becoming delegates, the more they have a choice on who is actually showing up in those ballots and who is your representative, your senator, your, anything. Anytime there are elections, it's not, all of them don't just go to primaries where you just elect them in November. And then you get an opportunity to go to a convention. And I know when I say an opportunity, I know people who are like, conventions are not an opportunity. This is not the most entertaining thing. And I agree. Again, if we want to change the system, we got to go inside and change the system. It's very hard to change a system that has been running this long from the outside. So we need to get involved. And so every time you have to, how do we learn about caucus? When is our next one?
When is it? I don't actually know if we've set the date for our next caucus date.
Okay.
But what you can do, you can't get wet until you jump in the water. And so you just jump in the water. Jumping in the water could look like a number of different things. If there's somebody that you found that you like, you're like, I don't like most politicians, but I found this person that I like.
And I want to support them.
Maybe it's Bernie Sanders, maybe it's your mayor, maybe it's a local, whoever it is, you just find somebody, I kind of connect with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Email their website and they'll have something for you to do. And then you can tell folks, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert. This is who I am.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever it is, there is work that you can do and you can find, and maybe it's not a politician because so much great work doesn't take place with the politician, but it's with a group of people that, it's the Save the Boundary Waters Fund, or it's Planned Parenthood, or it's, it's a group, or it's your local church, or it's an organization that's taking one of the most powerful groups that is doing a lot of really great organizing in Minnesota is a group called Faith in Minnesota.
Faith in Minnesota.
And that's a group of folks from a lot of different faith backgrounds, and they just said, well, these are the values that we think are really important. We don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
We agree on these values. And we're going to organize with each other to hold our elected officials accountable.
And future or potential.
And future and potential folks. So politicians will talk about power building.
Yeah.
There's power building that's happening in lots of spaces. And you can have a vision. You say, I'm going to build power on my own. I'm going to get 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 people. You don't have to do that. You can just say, these are some people that I like, or that's a cause that I like. Yeah. And I can do literally anything.
And I just want to, because I want to make it I like him things simple and make him actionable. So if you are leaning towards the GOP or the DFL, you can sign up through their websites and they will also send you emails to make sure that you're informed. What I want to make sure is that people remember when it, right now caucus already happened, but next time, so you Google so you find your district where you vote and when is caucus night for this district. And it usually happens at a high school and it's one evening and it's a few hours. Well, sometimes you can be there for 2 hours, sometimes a little longer. But again, I just want to remind people, this is where the power is at. And if you don't get involved, your voice is often not truly heard. Because if you have to go to to vote on November and your candidates are not showing up, and I mean the candidates that you would want to support are not there, is because also you're not involved in the process of electing those potential candidates as well.
So get involved in the process before it gets to the ballot box.
Yes.
Yes.
How did you phrase that? If you want to get in the pool, you got to get wet before you can get in the pool.
You can't. You got to do both.
You can't get wet if you don't jump in the pool.
Thank you.
That's right.
So we need people to do that.
And I was just going to say, you've been on an incredible health journey over the years.
Yes.
And it's not, I think whatever you learned in that process I wonder if you could share that with folks. It's exactly how you get politically active. Because you had to build muscles, you had to build habits. You're just like, I have to show up at a space you feel a little uncomfortable with. You're like, oh, this is a new space. I don't know if I'm going to be welcomed here. Are people going to judge me? I don't know how any of this works. And somehow you overcame all that and you went on the health journey. Can you tell us about that? Because I feel like that's going to be a perfect example of how you get into politics.
I mean, to encapsulate it, you got to get uncomfortable to grow. You just do. You just do. And I'm so fired up from this conversation right now. So I want to ask you two things before we close out. One, will you guys come back?
Yes.
There's a lot of value in this conversation. And I love the way you're presenting things. And two, I think you guys need to go on tour together and like the way you were breaking things down, I feel like you could get a 16, 17, 18-year-old to be fired up. yeah, how do I get involved? Why wasn't this taught in school? I know I didn't learn this
And
in
I'm so
school.
glad you said that, because 16-year-olds can get involved.
16-year-olds can get involved, 17-year-olds can get involved, 18-year-olds can vote, and 17-year-olds can be a part of the caucus and become delegates if they're going to be 18 by the time the election comes.
See?
So we had 17-year-olds in Mauricio's convention, I'm sure, and I know we had them in ours too. So folks that were 17 were legally able to participate.
And then those delegates get to form sometimes their own committees inside the party to drive some of those things. So if healthcare is an example, it's something that you're invested in and you want to make a change. Or as we think right now about Hennepin healthcare and what's going to happen to the future of one of the most important hospitals in our state, like we need to get involved. And you have commissioners are coming up also in elections. And I know not everybody gets involved unless it's a presidential election. We need to get involved in the small elections, because those are sometimes the ones that have some of the hardest impacts in your local communities.
Say that last part again. Why should we get involved on non-presidential years?
Because those small, so-called small elections are sometimes the most impactful directly in your communities.
Yeah.
Heed that lesson, not a warning. Actually, it is kind of a warning, right? Like
It's an invitation.
It's an invitation.
Hey,
Thank you. Look at that positive
look at
spin.
that.
You are a politician. Thank you so much, Simon, Mauricio. Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. What did you guys say to coming back? Did you say yes, you'll come back?
We say yes. Tell me when.
Okay, and tell me when your tour is too. I'll be sure to join you. I'll be recording you. So
Love it.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you. You're a great host, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Next week's guest, Dominique Wright. He runs a payment processing company. We'll get the name of it. I don't remember. But this was such a great conversation. I cannot wait to have you back. Hopefully before November, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.